Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, theFellowKGB. You can follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. And it is Wednesday evening. It's September 16th. It's almost 9 o'clock. I'm going to be doing a little bit different formatting from what I've been doing in the past. Tonight, I'm just going to be talking about the Thursday night football game. And then I think tomorrow I'll talk about the noon games separately. So tonight, it's strictly the Bengals at the Browns. So if you go to thefantasyfellowship.com, we're going to look at the week 2 start-sit charts. And I'm going to probably spend maybe 20 minutes breaking this game down. I figured Thursday night's a really big deal for some people. You got to get those start-sits right. So if we see here, I have my start-sit column here, Joe Burrow versus Baker Mayfield. This should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to just sit down and watch a full game of Joe Burrow for once and just see how things are going with A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, all these weapons. So we see the Bengals at the Browns. The Browns are 6-point favorites. I really don't know how I feel about that. I think the Bengals might be able to make this game a little bit closer than that. So, and then I have, I guess when I'm looking at some of these things, I have some stats. So basically we're going to be looking at some of the things that they did last week. So if you go to, I love this link of Pro Football Reference. And if you just scroll down just a little bit here, you're going to find the game boxes, the game logs from last week. So let's go ahead and we're just going to hop into the Bengals at the Chargers game. I'm going to break down some snap counts and some things that I noticed. So when you come to this link, you can just hit snap counts and it'll shoot you down here. But some things that stick out, we see we know the Bengals are going to use 3 wide receiver sets for the most part. So John Ross, I think it's really interesting that he was the leading snap guy at 84%, 57 total snaps. And then you see Tyler Boyd, 55 snap count, 81%. And A.J. Green was actually the third most used receiver at 45 for 66%. And then if you keep going down a little bit here, we see this was kind of weird to me. I thought Auden Tate would get a lot more run based on his training camp that he had. But we see Mike Thomas, Auden Tate, and T. Higgins. These guys basically rotated as the 4th receiver the whole game. So they each logged 15 snaps, 22% target share, or percent snap share. And then Alex Erickson kind of got a little bit of snaps at the end. And then a couple other things stick out. If we look at the running backs here, we see Joe Mixon getting 40 snaps at 59%. That's fine. Giovanni Bernard here at 20 snaps, 29%. That's kind of what I figured. I figured almost like a 65, maybe 35 split. But this looks like they did not use Joe Mixon as much in the passing game that I liked. And then as you see, no other running back is getting snaps here. So if anything happens to A.J. Green or to Joe Mixon, I think Giovanni Bernard is going to be the guy to target. And then we'll go over the tight ends real quick here. So you see C.J. Uzomah with 49 snaps, 72% snap share, and then Drew Sample down here at 24 snaps, 35% target share. And then you have Sathan Carter. I think he was just used for a blocking play. He's more of a special teams tight end. You see his special team snaps are really high up there. So to me, this looks like C.J. Uzomah is the guy to potentially target at tight end. So now that we've seen the snap counts, we know John Ross is the guy that's on the field the most last week. We know Tyler Boyd's going to be pretty much on the field at all times. And then they kind of rotated A.J. Green with some of these other receivers here a little bit. But everything about John Ross, Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green, these are going to be the heavy guys that do the heavy lifting for Joe Burrow. So I think that's a pretty good snap split for these guys. And then if we kind of just scroll back up to the top here, I'm going to get all the way to the top of the page. We're just going to click on player stats, and we'll kind of see how Joe Burrow decided to move the ball around. So we have the Bengals stats here. We see Burrow, 23 of 36 targets, 193 yards. That's a little bit low. He did have a pick. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but he did add a rushing touchdown in the column here. And he ran 8 times for 46 yards, which is I kind of figured Burrow would be, good with his legs, but I didn't picture 46 and a touchdown right away. I think I only had him projected for a touchdown or 2 on the season. So the fact that he's already here, it really has me thinking he can maybe add 30 or 40 yards on the ground, and he's always a shot for a rushing touchdown. And then you see the carries are really interesting. Like we talked about at the beginning, Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard, the Bengals only use 2 running backs. So you see if they're going to run the ball, they're giving it to Joe Mixon. He had 19 attempts. The only other attempt was to Giovanni Bernard here. So if they're going to run the ball, it's Joe Mixon. We see 69 yards here with just a 7-yard run for Giovanni Bernard, which is nice. That's a good yards per carry. But the targets, this is where it got weird for me. I mean, only 2 targets for Joe Mixon. I think that needs to be a little bit higher. He caught one of them for 2 yards, and then we did see a fumble lost here. So I don't know if that had anything to do with snaps and play counts and stuff. But I'm really not too nervous about the Cleveland Browns defense. I think they're going to try to feed Joe Mixon, but we see 19, rushing attempts, 1 reception. That's about 20 touches. He's going to be in somewhere in that 20 to 25 touch range, and we'll see if he can get in the touchdown the column this weekend. So I feel pretty good about Joe Mixon being your fringe RB1, RB2, and you see here the table just reads where I'm ranking these guys in fantasy. So I have Mixon up here as an RB1. I view him as an RB1/2. You're going to be able to use Joe Burrow as a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. Let's just pop over to ESPN real quick, and I just want to see exactly where he finished. I play in quite a bit of Superflex leagues. I don't know why this isn't loading right now. Let's just wait a second here and see if my teams pop up. So I'm just going to look at the point score, and I want to see exactly what position Joe Burrow finished at. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough game against the Chargers. They didn't, they held him under 200 yards, and they were able to kind of keep him in check and those receivers in check. But if we go ahead here and filter by position ranking, we see Joe Burrow, he was kind of down. So he ended up as quarterback 20. I think that's going to be his floor for most weeks. I kind of view him as a top 15, top 20 quarterback. And against the Browns, I really don't know if their secondary is going to be healthy tomorrow night. So I'm plugging Joe Burrow in Superflex lineups. You're starting Joe Mixon for sure. And then we come to the receivers. So if we look quick at the receivers for the Bengals and look at how their fantasy points came out, we're just going to filter here by Cincinnati. And you see AJ Green was the leading, we filter by fantasy points. He was the leading receiver for fantasy with just 10.1 points. He had a touchdown called back at the end. That was kind of controversial, but we see 5 receptions on 9 targets and 51 yards. So this kind of feels like a floor game. I'm wondering if they do decide to get his snap counts up. We saw that he was the 3rd most used receiver for the Bengals last week. So that might be like a slow ramp up here. And the schedule looks kind of nice for Joe Burrow and I guess the receivers going forward. You got Cleveland, you got Philadelphia, Jacksonville. These are all really suspect secondaries. So I'm totally cool with plugging in AJ Green, I think, as my wide receiver 3. Just kind of limit your expectations a little bit. Expect an 8 to 10 point floor and hope for a touchdown. I think we're going to see Joe Burrow's first touchdown pass tomorrow night. And then Tyler Boyd, he was a little bit disappointing. We'll go ahead and open up his game log here. But we see 5 targets, 4 catches, 33 yards. That's not going to cut it for Tyler Boyd. So I'm hoping that they decide to, get these targets up to, the 7, 8, 9 range and try to get him the ball a little bit more in the middle of the field. But again, I mean, as a 7.3 fantasy point day in PPR league, that's probably going to be his worst game. So I think it's only up and up from here for Tyler Boyd. And again, we really like those the snap counts. But we see here, let's just look at the target share for all the Bengals. So Bernard had 5, AJ Green 9, Uzama 5, Tyler Boyd 5, John Ross 5. So you see these guys are going to be, there's 5 of them. Those are the leading target getters for the Bengals. We'll see if Joe Mixon can kind of get more as the season goes on. But we see Uzama 4 catches, 45 yards on 5 targets. John Ross, he only caught 2 of his 5 targets for 17 yards, but I'm optimistic about John Ross because he was the leading receiver in snaps for this team. And it really only takes 1 play from John Ross to make your week. So I think there's a small chance that John Ross catches a bomb tomorrow night for a touchdown. I think he could be a guy that you add onto your bench and see what happens. I mean, if he's going to continue to be, an 80% snap guy and Joe Burrow is just going to get more and more comfortable, in the offense and the NFL in general, we could be getting some really nice things from all these receivers, really, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, and John Ross. But the thing that I guess this is my one take for the Bengals, we see CJ Uzama here, 8.5 fantasy points last week, and he was tight end 18. And I mean, he caught 4 of his 5 targets for 45 yards. This is a floor game of about 8.5 points. I see him somewhere in that 4 to 6 target range every week going forward. And, the receivers are going to be the main focus, the main focal point for defenses. So Uzama, he's going to be kind of running around and getting these loose coverages. And again, if you look at the snap counts here, it'll filter us down here. I mean, he had more than AJ Green, and he wasn't very far off of John Ross and Tyler Boyd. So we know the Bengals run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, but they're always going to have a tight end in there. So Drew Sample's kind of more the blocking tight end. Uzama is going to be the high floor PPR tight end. So I think that's going to pretty much break down the Bengals offense. And again, so I have AJ Green as a wide receiver 3. Tyler Boyd's going to be your wide receiver 3 flex. We're not trusting the Bengals defense for fantasy purposes, but you got to monitor Giovanni Bernard on the bench. He could be floating around on waiver wires and free agent lists, but he's nothing more than a handcuff right now. I think if something happened to Mixon, you're going to see them mix in second-year running back Travion Williams. So he's another name to file away for maybe later. But then again, CJ Uzama, John Ross, I'm really watching these guys because if I get another data point where John Ross is running the most snaps and he gets another 5-6 targets and he connects, for a 40 or 50-yard play, I'm all of a sudden getting more and more interested in John Ross. And then same with Uzama because if they get down to the red zone and I see a couple red zone targets for Uzama, maybe he doesn't connect. But if he's getting, again, 4 to 6 targets, 40, 50 yards, this could be a low floor or a high floor tight end streamer for you. So I'm super excited about the Bengals. I'm not too excited about the Browns defense. And this is where we're going to pivot here. And I'm just going to hit back and we'll try to get to, actually we can view it up here. So we're going to be looking for again, this is Pro Football Reference. It's just on their homepage. You can kind of just click into a game. But right now I'm looking for the Cleveland Browns game. The Browns just got stomped 38-6 by the Baltimore Ravens. So this game was close in the first quarter, but Lamar and company, they just pulled away and they just stifled Baker Mayfield the whole game. So we're going to start with the snap counts and see who's on the field and what they're doing. Now, keep in mind, the first quarter was close. They were down by, they lost by 14 in the second quarter. So we see, of course, 73 plays total by the Browns offense. You see Austin Hooper, he was on the field the most of all the positional skill players. So he's on the field for 56 snaps, about 77% of the snaps. Let's skip receivers and just talk about tight ends for now, because the Browns just put David Njoku on IR. So you see Austin Hooper here with 56 snaps, 77%. Rookie undrafted Harrison Bryant, tight end here, 31 snaps, 42% snap share. He also plays a little bit of special teams, which is cool to see. But then we talked about David Njoku. Njoku's on IR right now, 17 snaps, 23%. And then there's Steven Carlson here too. So essentially these 17 snaps are up for grabs. That might just, maybe 10 of these go to Harrison Bryant and, he gets up here, above Cadero Hodge. And then maybe some of these go to Carlson or maybe even more go to Hooper. So those will get dispersed. But the point is Harrison Bryant is a name, especially in dynasty leagues. He's a name to keep an eye on. I think he only had 1 catch. I can't remember how many yards, but he had a really good camp. There's a lot of good buzz about Harrison Bryant. So Austin Hooper didn't excite us, but I'm watching the tight ends tomorrow to see if Harrison Bryant makes more splash plays than Austin Hooper. So back to the receiver snap counts, you're going to see Odell Beckham at 55 snaps, Jarvis Landry 52, and Cadero Hodge here at 40. Rashard Higgins at 16, JoJo Natson. So these guys aren't really relevant, but if they're going to run three wide receiver sets, it's going to be OBJ, it's going to be Jarvis Landry, and Cadero Hodge. And then as far as running backs, this is going to be frustrating, I think, for a lot of people going forward. Whether you're a Nick Chubb owner or a Kareem Hunt owner, you're either happy or mad, right? So you see Kareem Hunt, because of the game script, down by, 18 at halftime. The Browns have to go pass heavy. So you see Kareem Hunt with 36 snaps to Nick Chubb's 35 snaps. The only other running back to get snaps here is Ernest Johnson. He's more of a change of pace, third down back. So don't really worry too much about him. But yeah, now we got this Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb timeshare. So we're going to go ahead here and filter back to the top, and I just want to look at the game logs for this Cleveland Browns offense. So Baker Mayfield, 21 of 39, not very efficient, 189 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, sacked twice, not really much help in the rushing department. But you're looking for him to be a little bit more consistent here. We thought that's why they brought in Austin Hooper. Jarvis Landry was pretty efficient with his targets, but Odell Beckham, 10 for 3, or 3 for 10. That's the number that really needs to improve there. So we'll see if Baker can kind of get more on page with Odell. And then I guess we'll break down these targets here. So you see, I guess Odell was the leading target man with 10, but only 3 catches for 22 yards. And the next highest targeted guy, I guess, Kareem Hunt with 6, 4 catches on 6 targets, only 9 yards. That's a little bit disappointing. He did fumble, but they were able to get it back. And then the next highest target guy was Jarvis Landry with 5 receptions, 61 yards. So Jarvis Landry is always going to be one of the more efficient guys in fantasy. So I feel pretty safe. The thing is, I guess we have to One thing is on the fantasyfellowship.com, I have this link to the RotoWire practice reports, and this is going to be a new really good link for you. If you click on Cleveland, we're going to see the practice reports here. So we have Tuesday practice reports and Wednesday practice reports, and you see Jarvis Landry. He did not practice yesterday. He didn't do a limited practice today. So I'm on the more positive sign about him playing tomorrow. So if he gets the green light to play, I think Jarvis Landry has the opportunity to be a wide receiver 3 flex, especially in PPR leagues. So I like Jarvis Landry. He's going to be more efficient with Baker in the short, middle of the field stuff, quick routes. And then you see a couple guys with 3 targets here. David Njoku caught all 3 of his targets for 50 yards and the lone touchdown for this offense on the day. But again, he's on IR, which makes me look at Harrison Bryant here or Austin Hooper. But I guess before we get ahead of ourselves, the other leading target guy with 3 was Cadero Hodge. He's the wide receiver 3 here. Nothing really to monitor there yet. But, I mean, look at these tight end targets of Austin Hooper, 2 for 2 and only 15 yards. Harrison Bryant, 1 of 2 for 5 yards. So these David Njoku targets are going to go somewhere. Maybe Austin Hooper gets all of them, but I'm kind of open to Harrison Bryant, maybe getting a little bit more. And I don't know. I really don't know how much we learned from the Browns offense going against the Ravens last week. If you would have told me that the Baker Mayfield's going to throw the ball 39 times a game, this year I would have said something went wrong. So this is not their ideal game script. I think they want to keep Baker between 25 and 30 carries or 30 throws, and essentially they want to give Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt the ball as often as they can in the backfield. So I guess as we break down the wide receivers, I think I'm really only interested in Jarvis Landry as my wide receiver 3 flex in PPR leagues. And Odell Beckham, man, all of a sudden it doesn't feel so good. Like we were a little bit excited again. We kind of got roped back in this summer. But to go 3 for 10 on your targets, only 22 yards, that's a little frustrating. So I won't blame you if you want to bench Odell. It's a Thursday night football game. Really anything can happen, and these games tend to usually be a little bit more low scoring than we expect. So I'm kind of on the fence about Odell Beckham. If you have someone on the bench or a better flex option like Naheem Hines, I think I'm going to go with the safer play there. But I get it. Odell Beckham, he's a highlight reel waiting to happen with any route that he runs. So for me, I'm kind of leaning towards not playing him. If Jarvis Landry's out, though, I think I'm going to play Odell Beckham. And then I'm probably sitting Austin Hooper. You probably draft him as your tight end 1, but I just don't feel comfortable. 39 targets here for Baker Mayfield and only 2 of them for Austin Hooper. That's a problem. So we'll see if he can get a little bit better week 2 and get back into our circle of trust. But for now, I mean, I'm on high, red alert with this Cleveland Browns offense. So if I go back here and look at my start-sit charts, again, the Browns are favored to win by 6, but it doesn't feel – I mean, this feels like the Bengals could, win by a field goal or something like that. So, I mean, we're starting Nick Chubb, leave him in as your RB1, RB2. I think if the Browns want to win by this, if they want to cover the 6, they're going to have to give Nick Chubb the ball 20 times. They're going to give the ball to Kareem Hunt, 10, 12 times between, carries and targets. So we're starting these guys for sure. Baker Mayfield, he's maybe a QB2 in Superflex leagues. Let's go ahead and filter. Let's filter the quarterbacks here by fantasy points. And we're going to see Baker Mayfield last week. He was QB 30 last week. So he is a risky play. I think I'd rather leave him on the bench and see what we got. Just watch a game of him, see how you feel about it. I would just focus on this running game. Maybe only Jarvis Landry is the only, receiving option here. So again, David Njoku to IR. We're going to watch Harrison Bryant. We'll see what Cadero Hodge can do. But yeah, if you're new to the Fantasy Fellowship, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Apple Podcasts if you'd rather listen to the podcast platform. And then I'm also on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. Hit me up with questions. You can just comment at me or hit me up in the DMs or find me on Facebook too. There's the Fantasy Fellowship Facebook in the search bar there. But if you're new to the Fellowship and you're at thefantasyfellowship.com, just on the homepage here, these are going to be your hot links where I have my waiver wire report that I put out every Monday, Tuesday. And then I have my start-sit charts where I'm going to go through, I'm going to rank my guys, and then I'll type up about a paragraph for each team. And at the moment right now, I think I'm halfway through. So I have all the start-sit charts done for the rest of the week 2 games. But I'm kind of typing some things up, and I'm just waiting for practice reports. So I think I might be able to go live tomorrow and discuss the noon games. And then on Friday, I think I'm going to do the afternoon, Sunday night, and Monday night football games. So going forward, we're going to break this this start sit charts into 3 pieces. We're going to do Thursday night football, where I do a little bit more in-depth stuff and try to cover that a little bit more well-roundedly. And then, we're going to break it into a noon podcast, start sit, program. And then we'll do, there's like 3 or 4 afternoon games usually, and then a Sunday night and a Monday night game. So we got 3 podcasts a week coming out, plus the waiver wire show. So that's going to be 4 shows a week. Subscribe to the channel. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, thefantasyfellowship.com. I want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate anyone who's watching, leaving comments, liking the video. Don't be afraid to do that. That helps the channel grow so much. So I appreciate everything that you guys do. And thank you so much. We'll see you in another video. Peace.